Greetings, Tauva. Who's this bald-bearded guy doing another video? Well, it's me. I haven't died. I still exist. I've just been extremely busy over the last month or so with the Nottingham Super Major, and then following that, the LVO. So I had to put a bit of a pause on my videos for the Grotmus Detachments over the Christmas time, and I'm going to catch up with this from now going into February. So I've got lots of content planned and lots of things that I'm going to be showcasing for the Puretide program, because it's a new season, brand new kind of creative ideas that I've got going, and trust me, the Puretide program in the Discord is absolutely popping. Over in the Pathfinder, Shas'O, and Shas'O, there's going to be plenty more content coming your way in February. I've got a few things that I'm not quite ready to reveal yet, but trust me, in the Shas'O package, there is an amazing new tool that I'm working on, and part of these detachment reviews is going to be a big part of it. Now, if you want to know more, click on the link below and join. I'm not quite ready to kind of reveal the big stuff just yet, but in February, especially in the first week, they're going to have some big announcements, and I'm going to be doing videos to showcase what goes on behind the scenes. So you'll get plenty of information to kind of wet that knowledge whistle and come over and join. So if you are interested, link is below. Go and check it out. You got different tiers and a different budget, a product for every budget. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the Warpbane task force. Now, I'm going to redo this one, or I'm sorry, this is a retake on one that I originally did because I got a few things wrong. Now, I have since played the Warpbane task force with the Grey Knights at Nottingham, so I've got a bit more first-hand knowledge to provide to you. So let's have a look into the detachment itself and what it does. Now, hallowed ground is effectively, there's three areas of the battlefield. There's the deployment zone, which is always within their hallowed ground. There is the mid-board, so no man's land, and then there is the enemy deployment zone. So in order to control the hallowed ground, they just have to do the following. At the start of any phase, if you control at least half of the objective markers within your opponent's deployment zone, so usually in your opponent's deployment zone there's only one, so they just have to take away your home field, which 9 times out of 10 shouldn't happen, but it can happen, and if so, it is considered the hallowed ground. And obviously at the start of any phase, the key thing to remember here, if they control half the objective markers within no man's land, it becomes a hallowed ground, and then their deployment zone is always considered hallowed ground. Now, what happens is, there's an extra caveat here, where the area of the battlefield within 6 inches of one or more Purifier Squad units from their army is is considered the hallowed ground. So ask yourself a question, is it a Purifier Squad? Brilliant, well then they're just going to be getting the hallowed ground, and everything within 6 inches of said Purifier Squad will be able to get the buff. And the buff is, they can reroll the hit rolls of a 1, and if that unit is a Purifier Squad and or is wholly within your army's hallowed ground, you can reroll the hit rolls. So Grey Knights are quite an elite army, and you'll find that they're quite expensive, so they don't usually win the attrition war, but they can definitely now, with this detachment, do more consistent damage. Think about the Dread Knights, the Grandmasters, and they can all reroll hit rolls of 1, but most of the time are going to be full rerolls to hit. In terms of their enhancements they've got available to them, they've got a few. The Mandalorian Reliquary is a Grey Knights model only, while the Bearer's unit is not battle shot, add 3 to the objective control characteristic. Radiant Champion is going to be the one that they take, because it's a Grey Knights infantry model. The Bearer's melee weapon have the precision ability, and while the Bearer is wholly within the army's hallowed ground, each time a melee attack made by the Bearer scores a wound, the target of that attack suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. So basically, if they wound, they'll be, so let's say if they got 4 attacks, okay, and they wound with 4 of them, it'll be 4 mortals in addition to any normal damage. So it's just another way of just doing consistent damage. The Vial of the Abyss is a 25-point enhancement. Models in the Bearer's unit have the stealth ability. It could be taken. The stealth on top of the profile of a typical Grey Knights unit is quite annoying because they got 2-up save and they're going to be stealth as well, so it can kind of add up. But for us, we have multiple ways of ignoring stealth, whether that be your Crisis Fire Knife teams that innately ignore any penalties to hit, or you've upgraded, say, your broadsides to have that support system, and then obviously some of our damage dealers like Riptide ignore modifiers to hit anyway. The Paragon of Sanctity, 10 points. Grey Knight model only. Once per battle at the start of any phase, the bearer can select one friendly Grey Knight unit within 18 and visible to it. If it does, until the end of the phase, that unit is within your hallowed ground. That is a 10-point auto include in my opinion. So I think they'll probably definitely play around with definitely the Paragon of Sanctity and then the Radiant Champion, and flip between the Vial of the Abyss or the Reliquary for 20 points to add 3 to the objective control. Most likely will probably be the Vial or none. So in terms of their stratagems, so what have they got available to and what do we need to look out for? So the Sanctified Kill Zone. Your shooting phase or the fight phase. One Grey Knights unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase, and that is wholly within your army's hallowed ground. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, you can reroll the wound roll of 1, or reroll the wound roll instead if it is a Purifier squad. So you'll have kind of gathered by now everything's centered around Purifier squads. Now, most Grey Knight lists in this Warpbane detachment will be taking 3 units of Purifiers. And they'll also be taking Castellan Crow, because he is a very good multiplier for some of their extra attacks, like the Purifying Flame attacks. So, Flames of Sanctity, it's a perfect segue that I've mentioned Crow. So, end of the fight phase, 1 Purifier squad from your army that was eligible to fight this phase, so it's ended the fight phase. Roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 6, adding 1 to the result if your unit includes Castellan Crow. On a 4+, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortals, so it would be on a 3+ if the unit happens to include Castellan Crow. So the way this is going to be used is that once they've kind of moved in, charged, and then pile in, consolidate, then everything within 6 inches potentially is going to take d3 mortal wounds on a 3+. So it could snipe out poorly placed characters, it could chip some damage off something. If you've got like a Riptide or something with a couple of wounds left, then you're in danger. And it can really catch you out. So be aware of the Flames of Sanctity. Now the Hallowed Beacon. Now this one, initially when I read it, I was like, oh my god, they got 6-inch Deep Strike. And they can also charge, because they can charge in this one. It doesn't stipulate that you cannot charge if you use the stratagem, or you cannot charge if you use the stratagem. So they can, and I repeat, they can charge, and it's a 6-inch Deep Strike. But looking into it a little bit more, it's actually a lot harder to pull off than you think. Because it's basically 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit, excluding Terminator units, that is arriving using the Deep Strike or Teleport Assault abilities this phase. Set up your unit wholly within your army's hallowed ground and more than 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. So, easiest way to remember this, they're never going to do hallowed ground in your deployment zone. So you've got that boxed off, so you can screen the normal 9 inches bubble, and that's quite easy to do so with Tau, because we've got MSU or many small units. But when it comes to the mid-board, then as long as you are controlling more than half, then they can't 6-inch Deep Strike by controlling half of the objectives in No Man's Land. So if you imagine an objective, just grab an objective here. So if you imagine an objective here, and you would usually maybe only put like a couple of models on the halfway line, and then what they'll do is they'll move their units and control this objective in the centre and another one, therefore ticking the box of controlling half or more, and then they could come in 6 inches and then charge. And then if they killed said unit, then with the charge move plus the pile-in plus the consolidation, then they can pull off the Flames of Sanctity, so to do the mortal wounds on a 4+, but if it's Castellan Crow's unit, it'd be on a 3+. So what you would do to avoid, put the objective marker away, let's start that again. So what you would do instead is if you know that that turn is coming and they're going to be deep striking in, you surround the complete objective so that they physically can't walk on models onto it to take away or to control said objective. So if you know it's coming, then ensure that you are blocking them out in their movement phase from ever taking that objective from you. They're going to take it from you with after the shooting and the combat, but stopping them from taking control of it in the movement phase is key. But remember that if you strip away everything that I've just said, remember that they can do it next to a Purifier squad, because a Purifier squad always counts the 6 inches aura around them as the hallowed ground. So that to you already signals where they can go. So when you're setting up your screens and making sure that they can't just get into the cookie jar, then you know where the Purifier squad is. So in your turn, you can set up defenses to stop them from getting in, charging an important unit, or getting really into your castle, if you will. So please, please, please bear that in mind. Fires of Convent. So it's another stratagem at the start of your opponent's movement phase. 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit that is set up or ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 6 of this unit, roll 1d6, adding 2 to the result if your unit is wholly within your army's hallowed ground. And on a 4+, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. So again, if for example that unit is within the hallowed ground, aka Purifiers, or happens to control no man's land, then they're going to be adding 2 to that result. So on a 2+, you're going to be suffering d3 mortal wounds. And it's each time an enemy unit is set up. Okay? So it's another bit of it's very niche. It probably won't come up. It didn't come up in my game, but it's something that they can do. And, you know, if you're sending something, or, like, something's got, like, a couple of wounds left, and you're going to, like say, a devilfish, for example, you go, well, I'm going to fall back, because I want to block this area for something, like a 2-man breach unit's going to fall back here to then block off your deep striking or your rapid ingress. Then remember, they could go, actually, I'm going to get rid of that resource by doing this stratagem because you ended a normal move within 6, and then I'm going to kill them with mortal wounds, and I happen to be in my hallowed ground, so therefore you just lost that piece. So if you've got less than 3 wounds on something, whether it be models or a unit that has got less than 3 wounds, honestly, be aware that they could just kill it if you've ended a normal move advance or a fallback move within 6. Then another stratagem called the Aegis Eternal. So the Aegis Eternal, your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit from your army that has selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit that are wholly within your hallowed ground have a 4+ invulnerable save. So they're on a 2+ base. Assuming that we ignore cover, then anything that's AP2 is going to be putting these units on a 4+ save anyway. So units that we have like Plasma Fire Knives that are AP3, or the Ion Accelerator that's AP3, they may consider doing a 4+ invulnerable save, but they do have to be in the hallowed ground. So unless they're next to a Purifying squad, then you can influence this in your movement phase to be like, well, you're not within your hallowed ground, and you won't be able to have this 4+ invulnerable save. So again, something to kind of put in your back of your head and keep asking the question is, if you're aiming to kill said unit, then you've got to always look at ground. Is there any purifiers next to it? Can I kill those purifiers first? Because from an activation point of view, if you kill the purifiers and then try to shoot, say, another unit, then because you killed the purifiers first, they're not within the hallowed ground, because then you could always influence the hallowed ground by your positioning around objectives. Okay, makes sense so far. Now, the other stratagem is called Repelling Sphere. Start of your opponent's charge phase, 1 Grey Knight's unit. Basically, they can do off photon grenades. So until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit declares a charge, and your unit is one of the targets of that charge, subtract 1 from the charge rolls, or subtract 2 if they are within their army's hallowed ground. So all that being said, what can we do to tech for Warpbane Task Force? So the normal stuff applies. Make sure that you have enough screens like Crew Hounds, Crew Carnivore Squads, even Vespid can be used. Just cheap, small units that are able to kind of screen out the board. Because remember, they can still pick up 3 units at the end of your fight phase and go uppy-downy. So you have got to respect that. The purifiers are obviously going to be a key thing for them within this detachment. So always kind of keeping an eye on where they are placed, and if you have the opportunity to remove them, go for it. In terms of the damage dealing pieces, I mean, we're not really lacking in terms of units to deal with power armor. 2-up saves is a little bit of a different beast. So, you know, Breach is at AP1, and Missile Fire Knives at AP1 unless they're in Montcar or Auxiliary CAD that have access to boosting the AP by an additional 1. So you're really going to kind of want to tech for these 2-up save units with Plasma Fire Knives, Riptides. I think Fire Knives is probably the best solution in my experience. Being able to target something that's at full starting strength and get full rerolls. For example, a nice little unit in Kion could be a unit of Fire Knife Plasmas with a Cold Star with 3 Plasmas and a Cyclic Iron Blaster, and then you give them the Exemplar of Kion. So on turn 2, you could be doing a total of 9 Plasma shots that are full rerolls to hit because the unit that you're shooting at is as full starting strength, with sustain hits 2 when they're guided, so you guide like a stealth suit team, and then full reroll, so you're just kind of fishing for those 6s. And then it's AP3 flat 3 damage, so it'll just, everything that goes through will be killing Terminators, it'll be killing 2-wound Marine models, and then you've got the Cyclic Iron Blaster from the Cold Star as well. So I think that's probably a really good staple to tackle Grey Knight units. Speaking of Grey Knight units, let's have a little bit of deep dive into some of the units. So give me a second while I just flip between a few screens. Okay, so as I mentioned before, remember that they can, in a typical 2,000 point game, which is Strike Force, they can pick up to 3 units at the end of your opponent's fight phase, and then they can just go up and down. Now, in terms of the Purifier Squad, so should allow me. Okay, so the Purifier Squad. Now, the Purifier Squad will basically have the Sanctity of Purpose is their datasheet rule. Each time this model unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. If this unit is below its starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. So if you don't shoot to kill, and you leave like some models left, they're going to adding 1 to the wound roll as well. Adding 1 to the hit roll, and then obviously if they're below half strength, they're going to be adding 1 to the wound roll. So you really need kind of quantity, you need to kind of pump into them and kill them. And obviously you might see 10-man unit with Crow, but most of the time it's like kind of 5-mans. The, excuse me, Castellan Crow is one that's obviously mentioned within a stratagem, and Castellan Crow gives a few buffs to the unit. Now, he's got like an ability that he can just blanket damage. While this model is leading unit, add 1 to the attacks of that unit's Purifying Flame. So, himself, as this Purifying Flame is anti-infantry 2+, ignores cover psychic, 3 attacks, strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage. But remember, there's ways of, you know, re-rolling to hit, and then adding 1 to the wound roll, and then also re-rolling the wounds. And then the Purifier Squad, so it's Purifying Flames, are 1 attack. 18-inch range, anti-infantry 2+, ignores cover, psychic, strength 4, AP 1, 1. But with Castellan Crow, they're going to be doing 2 attacks. So if they do take a unit of 10, that's 20 for 1 and 1. Anti-infantry 2+, ignores cover, psychic. They will just rinse your screens. Like Crew, Breaches, doesn't matter, they'll just absolutely decimate you. And then they've got the, you know, special weapons plus storm bolters. So it's a lot of shots coming from that unit. And it's going to be uppy downy, pretty much hitting the side of the board, going away. So you need to be able to down this unit in one go. And remember, with the 6-inch hallowed ground deep strike plus a charge, suddenly they could just go full send. Now, if we have a look at some of the other units that you're going to have to look out for, you should know what the Dread Knights do. Now, so I just really want to focus on. I'll load up a couple of squads to show you, and what I'll do is I'll give you an example of a list that I played in Nottingham. So I played Luke Townsend. Let me just make sure it's showing properly on OBS, which it is. Okay, so Luke Townsend took he took a Stellan Crow, a Grandmaster in Dread Knight, a Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight. He took an Interceptor squad ×2, just 2 units of 5, 3 units of 5, and then he took 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. 2 Purgation squads with the silencer, 1 unit with silencers and 1 unit with side cannons, and then he took 1, 2, 3 Purifier squads of 5, and then he had the Watch Captain Artemis. So this was an experimental list. He said himself he was just trying it out and just getting a feel for it, but I could see how the pieces connected together. And the one thing that Grey Knights will suffer from generally is because they're quite an elite army, they will not really win the attrition war. Hence why they like to choose an area of the board, dominate it, and then go away and come back on another side. Because every unit that they lose is painful to them. And they cannot afford to lose these expensive units because then they just start to lose the attrition war, they can't do secondaries, and then obviously they then lack the damage. But the damage is made up by these little boosts in efficiencies like the reroll to hit rolls, reroll ones, and then obviously potentially rerolling wounds if it's a purifier with a stratagem. So what they're going to end up doing is imagine these interceptors are going to be the key part to the list because they have an innate ability, which I'll show you now. So the interceptor squad, in your shooting phase, after this unit is shot, if it is not within engagement range, it can make a normal move of 6 inches, but it cannot declare a charge after it does so. Then look at the Purgation squad. So the Purgation squad is their ability is called Astral Aim. In your shooting phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have the indirect fire ability, provided that the target of that weapon is visible to 1 or more friendly Grey Knights Psyche units, which, shock horror, is pretty much everything. Now, he had 1 unit that had all silencers, which have sustained hits, and that's 6 shots each. So he had a unit with 4 of these, so that is 24 shots. Yes, they'll be hitting on 4s, but if they're in the hallowed ground, they will be full rerolls to hit, which all they have to do is be in the deployment zone or within 6 inches of a Purifier squad. Ignoring the complex, or I have to control objectives. No, they'll just sit in their deployment zone and always be in hallowed ground and have 4 rerolls. So statistically, 12 hit when you're hitting on 4s, but with 4 rerolls, that'll be 18 hit. They're going to get 4 6s in the first roll, and then another 2, so that's 6 6s, so that's back to 24. And it's strength 5, no AP, 1 damage. So imagine you set up a screen, like a Kroot screen or something, thinking you're protected behind the wall, then an interceptor squad, which is movement 12, can move out, shoot. They can move out, they can see you. The silencers from the Purgation squad shoot you. This unit shoots something, doesn't even have to kill it, could shoot your Devilfish. It's not going to do damage to you, but it's going to shoot your Devilfish and then fire and fade away. So what you'll see is that they will move out, they'll see you, shoot you within direct, then shoot you with the Interceptor Squad, and then fire and fade that unit behind a wall, so that they've revealed nothing but taken down your screens and your chaff or your many small units. So that is their way of getting around the attrition war, because then they are removing your units but not losing anything in return. This is a key component. So how do you get around that? Well, what I did in my game was I forced them out because I needed them to come out and play the game. I couldn't afford to just watch them hop in, hop out of terrain, indirect me, and so on and so forth. So forcing them to come out and play the game to deny you primary or to achieve certain secondaries that might come up for them, that's the key thing here. So they do suffer from attrition, so you just got to force them out. You cannot play cat and mouse with them. You just got to go, here's a devilfish full of breaches. I'm not going to get my breaches out. Here's a devilfish. You've got to bring your Grandmaster out or your Dread Knights to try and pop a devilfish, and then you've got to line up units to kill the breaches that fall out, otherwise my breaches are going to fall out on an objective. And then they're just like, okay, and then they got Dread Knights out in the open, and then your heavy hitters like your Broadsides or your Riptides can go out and kill the Dread Knights. So this forces them to play your game rather than playing theirs, and their game is quite simply going to be what I've just said. They're going to have Purifier squads, always projecting the hallowed ground. They're going to have the Purifier squads shooting you with indirect with full rerolls, and they're going to be looking at you with one unit and then the indirect because they can see you with their Interceptor squad. They can then shoot you and then they lose nothing. That's their game plan that they want to play. Dread Knights, you know them. They're basically, what they lose out on this is that we're used to seeing Dread Knights that can just, in the Index one, auto-advance 6, and they can advance, shoot, and charge. So it'll be, you're used to them moving 14 inches, shooting and charging. In this one, they cannot auto-advance, so they are still subjectable to a D6 roll. So movement 8, plus a D6, an average of 3, the movement 11, and they can charge. So that's basically the maximum threat range is 26, but that's as the crow flies, so 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be the case because they have to move around terrain or that kind of stuff. And now that they just don't auto-advance 6, an average movement is going to be 11 with an advance, which is then plus 12 on the charge, is 23 inches. So it's a lot more manageable in terms of making sure that they don't connect. In terms of their guns, 9 times out of 10 they'll be taking the heavy incinerator, plus obviously then the heavy side cannon. So 6 shots now, hitting on 3s, but it's going to be full rerolls, strength 10 AP2, flat 3 damage. So a little bit more consistent in terms of the damage. But again, look at the toughness. The toughness 8. They've got a 2+4+ save 13 wounds. Most of our guns, ion cannons from hammerheads, Riptide ion cannon, it's strength 8, so you're doing on 4s with the access to rerolling 1s to wound with guided by stealth suits. So we don't exactly lack the ability to remove these in one go. 4 up invulns can be a bit swingy, but quantity of shots, and we usually kind of like bank a couple of units firing into one. Broadsides are great, by the way. My broadsides did absolute work versus Luke at Nottingham. Just being able to go 4 rails, high yield missile pods, not high yield missile pods, the missile drones, and plus the Seeker missiles once per game will down a Nemesis Dread Knight, especially if you get a few dev wounds through with the rails. So, in closing, against this, you just need to ensure that you're aware that they can 6-inch deep strike. I think if I was to put 3 key things on your hit list, would be number 1, they can 6-inch deep strike in the hallowed ground, so in their deployment zone, or if they're within 6 inches of a purifying squad and charge. And then can do some cheeky mortal wounds with everything within 6 at the end of the fight phase. And it'd be on a 3+ if Castellan Crow's in the unit, or a 4+ normally. And every unit within 6 takes D3 mortal wounds. 2, the Interceptor combo with the Purgation squad. So remember, Interceptor squad will go out, will see you, they'll indirect you with silencers, which is basically 24 shots with sustain hits 1, hitting on 4s with full rerolls. and then clear a screen and then shoot the interceptor squad to then fire and fade. So then they're not revealing anything. And the third thing to remember is that you do not have to worry about 3-inch/6-inch deep strike in no man's land or in your home field. So you can get away from this habit of trying to screen everything. Your deployment zone can easily be screened on the traditional 9 inches away, so get yourself some measuring sticks and just make sure that you're not leaving any gaps to fit units within. And then in terms of the no man's land, if it is not a purifier squad, then make sure that you are not half-arsing it when you're trying to block up objectives. Do not let them move on to an objective. Circle the entire objective so they physically can't move on, so that then they cannot make it their hallowed ground. So hopefully this video has been really useful for you. I'd love it if you can show support by liking, sharing and subscribing to the channel if you don't already do so. And please, please, please leave a comment in below because it helps the algorithm. And the more videos, the more interaction I get from you guys, the more videos I will do. In terms of the Puretide program, it is a fantastic place to be if you want to join a like-minded community that is positive, talks about the game that we love, and helps you whether you are a beginner, intermediate, or you're an expert. And if you want to take your performance to a next level, I do offer 1, direct coaching, which is available to me if you reach out. 2, I have set up a very specific program that can tier to entry level, medium, and then the highest level of competitive play. I had a fantastic year this year, and I love seeing the support that was given by my entire community and pushing me to go to greater heights. I couldn't have done it without you, and I thank you for the support. But I was in almost sniffing distance of winning the ITC as a mono faction specialist, which is just crazy. I still can't get my head around it. And it all came down to the last event. And at the end of the day, the skills that I've acquired over the many, many years of playing this game, I want to coach and pass on to the new generation of Tau players. And it gives me great privilege and great honor to be able to work with individuals to help them kind of overcome some obstacles that they've been facing or change the way that they look at the game so that they can start to see their own improvement and to become better at the game. So please, please, please check out the description below, and that's pretty much it. So enough of me selling myself. I'm going to bid you adieu, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and get ready for more because plenty more is coming your way in February. Take care, guys. Thank you very much.